All right, we're going to be in Psalm 46 today, y'all. Here's the deal. We were going to talk about be still and love, right? And we were going to wrap up the series. And I'm not exactly sure what we're going to be doing next week, if we're going to wrap up the series next week or this week or not. But with everything going on in my life over the last week and a half now, God just led me on a different direction this morning. I stared at my computer for what seemed like hours, and outside of the fact that I just couldn't, it was hard for me just to pull myself together to get to do work, you know. I felt that the things that I had already planned weren't the things that God wanted to say. You know, you ever have those moments? If you have a close relationship with God or any relationship with God, you have these moments where you think you know where God's going to have you go, until the moment you get there and you're like, maybe God wants to do something else. Right? And so I spent a couple hours just staring at my computer. Some of it was on Facebook, anyway. But staring at my computer, just trying to figure out, what do I do right now? Where do I go? What is God needing for me to hear, wanting for me to hear at this moment? And I believe preaching, and I believe that this role that I have is an extension of my devotional life. Right? It's whenever I'm learning from God, I believe God wants to pass on to those who are learning with me. I don't see myself as above anybody. I don't see myself as below anybody. I see we're all equal walking this path together. And so what we're going to read tonight, what we're going to discuss tonight, it may not be a complete, well thought out kind of discussion tonight, but it is where we're at and it is where I'm at. And so I hope that the Lord uses us to bless you and your life as we go through these things. So we're going to read Psalm 46 tonight in 3 sections. And we're going to just talk about this idea of being still. You know, the whole idea of our Reboot series that we're on is just that we have to learn how to reset our faith and reset our life. And instead of doing things for God, which I think we should do, by the way, I think it's important for us to do things for God, but our motivation, the center of our faith, should not be based upon what we do. It should be based upon who we are and who God is. And so this idea that we want to push through the rest of this series is God just wants us to be still. That's what really Christianity is about. It's about calmness. It's about peace. It's about just resting within the Lord and allowing Him to work through us so that He can accomplish His purposes throughout the kingdom and throughout your life and the life of those around you. Okay? You know, I'm sure there's some, you know, obviously there's a lot of depth there that we will get into today and we will not get into today, but it's right there in the center. And it is something that is so easily grasped, but yet so difficult at the same time. Like I can look at you and I can say, be still. God wants you to be still, but what does it even look like? What does it even look like? This is why I wanted to look at Psalm 46 today and give an overview of what it just means to be still. What kind of circumstances is God speaking into, and what does that mean for us here today in our lives in America in 2023? Okay, so I want to start off by just giving a synopsis of life at the time that this psalm was written. I want to read just the first 3 verses of Psalm 46 to start us off. All right, here is what David, actually, this is not a Davidic psalm. This is Sons of Korah, I believe it is. So anyway, this is a psalm written by some people who were with Moses when they were wandering in the desert. Okay. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. If you are a highlighter, ever-present is the word you want to highlight right now. Okay. We'll get into why here in a minute. An ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give away, and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, and the mountains quake with their surging. What the psalmist is describing here is a life falling apart. Obviously, this is not a literal interpretation. That we do not need to read this and say that mountains were crumbling into the sea. No, this is a poetic way of saying life sucks right now. Everything is falling around me. You ever feel that way? You ever feel that just no matter what you do, no matter where you're at, no matter how hard you try, life just kind of sucks? That everything is kind of falling around you all at once? There was a time, and it's not been this last week and a half, trust me, but there's been a time in my life where I thought that this was true. Where everything around me was just failing, and no matter how hard I tried, I wasn't succeeding. And I was just digging myself deeper into a hole that I created. And there's plenty of people who go through this kind of life, time and time again. There are people who say life doesn't go wrong, it is wrong. And their entire lives can be summed up like this. Everything, no matter how hard they try, the world is against them. And this is why some people go as far as taking their Christianity and they say, I don't believe in God because a loving God would not make my life this way. I have people in my life who believe this about God because everything they have done, everything they have tried, nothing has worked. But this is why this psalm was written. The psalm was written for people like that. For people who are going through basically hell on earth. And who are not living, but are trying to survive. Now imagine people wandering around the desert. They left one horrible situation, being enslaved by Egypt, for what they consider to be an even worse experience. Now, there could be a lot of the conversation and discussion about whether or not it really was that bad, seeing how all their food was taken care of, their clothes never got worn out, their sandals never wore out, and they pretty much had all their needs taken care of. But they still thought that this moment of life was one of its worst. And no matter how hard they tried, even listening to a prophet of God, it still didn't work. I don't know about you, but there are times where I feel that, man, I'm a pretty faithful guy. You know, I love Jesus with everything that I have. You know, why can't life be a little easier than what it is? You know, I thought that the dysfunction of my sin would be gone when I became a Christian. But the dysfunction seems to rear its ugly head at the most inconvenient of all times. But this psalm says, yeah, that's going to happen. That is going to happen, right? It's all going to go to crap sometime. And that's okay, because when life goes wrong, God is there. But this is what I love about this psalm. He's not just there, he is ever present. But let me tell you about this word. This is actually a compound word in the Hebrew. It's not one word, it's two words. It's one of those words that is so confoundingly confusing that they couldn't just sum it up with one word. They had to use two words. So you know how in the Bible you have this word called loving kindness? You know that word loving kindness? That word was a created word because there was no word to describe the kind of love that God had for his people. It's said in Hebrew. This is one of those created words. It's two words put together to create a new word that only can be described with God. And it says that it means that God is not just there, he is, let's see how do I have it, exceedingly present. He's obviously, overwhelmingly available. That's how I put it. God is overwhelmingly available to those who call out to him. So when life goes wrong, the psalmist wants us to understand that we have nothing to fear. We shouldn't be afraid for anything. We shouldn't have to worry about anything. We shouldn't have to be concerned about whether our needs are going to be met, right? This is what Jesus gets out in Matthew chapter 6. Don't worry about tomorrow, for today has enough worries of its own. But even if today you're worried, God will take care of your needs today and every day. because he is overwhelmingly available to you and to me. When God shows up, he gives us what we need and then some. The only thing I can liken this to, and maybe it's just because of my background, but the only thing I can liken this to is an invasion. When somebody invades a country, one day there's nothing, and then the next day they're all there. They don't just come in like a little drizzle. It's not like just one or two guys show up, like, hey, we're here to invade your country. Give us a couple days. That's not how it works, right? They send everything. They send the old army, the Marines, the Air Force, everything that they have. They'll send all at once, and they'll attack quick and furious so that you have no time to react. This is how God shows up. He shows up in such a way, with such force, with such power, with such timing, with so much of who he is, that it's hard to combat. It's hard not to embrace it. It's hard not to see it. Because of that invasion in our lives, there should be nothing of which we should be afraid. Even when our whole life crumbles around us, there's nothing that we should be afraid of. Even when life is on the brink of destruction, there is nothing that we should be afraid of. Even when all seems lost, and there is no hope, there is nothing that we should be afraid of. This is what I want you to focus on as we enter into our first set of discussion questions. They're up here on the screen. They're also on the pages in front of you. We make sure you read the first three questions on the front because those apply to all the sections. But then there's more specific questions on the back. And if you have any questions for me, feel free to raise your hand. I'll be more than happy to come over there and have a conversation with you. All right, take about 10 minutes, and then we will come back together. This last question really intrigued me when I wrote it down because it is a surprising kind of thought, right? What happened, Scott? What's that? If you're not, yeah.
Larry just breaks things.
Icebreakers. All right, whatever. Anyway, I was really intrigued by this last question because it is like kind of an oxymoron, maybe. I think that's even the right word, but you have God, the psalmist, using this language that says that God's presence attacks us and invades us, right? When we are in trouble, He is an ever-present help, right? But how many people do we know? And even in our own experiences, when things start going wrong, where we don't feel that, right? Where we just can't kind of like come to terms with this idea, like, wait a minute, if God is ever present, if He's invading us with His presence, and He wants to know that He is here in abundance, why is it so hard in these moments to know that God is there? Why? And the rest of our sermon and our conversations will help us to kind of figure that out. But I want to just take a minute to focus on this idea that God is with us, right? Because that's where the psalmist goes next. Before he even answers that question, he says, let me just prove to you, let me just explain to you what I mean by the fact that God is there. So with that, let's take a look at our next set of verses. This is verses 4 through 9. And here's what the psalmist writes. He says, there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her. She will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Nations are in uproar. Kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice, and the earth melts. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Come and see what the Lord has done. The desolations he has brought on the earth. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. Even in this language, there's a lot of question of, the authenticity of what the psalmist is writing, because people believe when this was written that he was talking about the physical nation of Israel. Right? When he talks about the city that God resides in, that was Israel. Israel was supposed to be the place for God. Well, if you know your history, you know that Israel fell. It fell hard. It was wiped out, almost out of existence. But that's not what the psalmist was talking about. He was talking about the spiritual nation, the idea that there is going to be a kingdom that God is inhabiting, that exists throughout the entire world. The point that he is making here is that he is here. That he is here. The psalmist talks about this river whose streams make glad the city of God. Now, compare that to what we just saw in the first 3 verses. A rushing, roaring river, a powerful thing that was creating calamity and chaos. And then in contrast, you have what God is offering as calm and peaceful. See, the psalmist is showing us that with God, when God invades, when God's presence is there, it provides a calmness to the chaos. He is the eye of the storm. He is the one who speaks calmness into the chaos of the storms of life. This is best shown if you know your New Testament. If not, I'll tell you a quick story. This is shown in the story of Jesus falling asleep on a boat, and there's this huge storm surging around him. The disciples are losing their minds, like, we're all going to die, right? Like they are like freaking out, and then there's Jesus snoring away because the dude probably hasn't slept in like 3 days. And so they wake him up, they're like, what, do you not care about us? Like, there's a storm that's about to topple us over, and all you want to do is catch some Z's. By the way, I live in a pretty chaotic household. That is my goal at that time, right? That is so chaotic in my house that nothing will wake me up. I think I'm there almost. No? Okay.
Not even close.
But Jesus was just out. And so they wake him up, and I always imagine Jesus being annoyed at this point. Like, well, how is this in the middle of sleep, guys? And he wakes up and he's like, you know what, just be still. And the whole storm just stops. And then the guys are like, oh, this is the Messiah. I said they didn't know it before, right? Like, oh, this must be him, right? Because he can make a storm stop. This is what God does. This is who God is. He brings calmness into a situation. He turns oceans into streams. Jesus said in John chapter 16, he says, in me, I want you to have peace. In this world, you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. Jesus is the contrast. In a world full of trouble, Jesus is our peace. John 14, verse 27, he says, peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Why? Because the world gives chaos. Jesus gives peace. So he finishes that off by saying, do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid. You don't have anything to fear because God is with us. And when he's with us, he provides calmness, peace. This is what I tell people to look for when they're trying to make a decision for God. Do you have a peace now? Do you have a calmness now? Do you have something in you that says, yeah, this is right? Because everything else will try to make you chaotic. Everyone else will try to force you into the decision built on pressure. God doesn't do that. God doesn't pressure us into anything. He gives us the opportunity to seek the peaceful solution. Here's the truth. Here's what the psalmist says in these verses, is that we can be calm because God is with us and he will help us. We can be calm because God is with us and will defend us. We can be calm because God is with us and will protect us. This is what he means when he says that he is our fortress. But here's the deal. I want to go, not even on that thing, so like, did I go too far? Nope. Hold on. I'll go back to the verse. There you go. He says, he makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. You know what I hear when I see this? It's that not only is God with us, but he will make everything right. He will fix chaos. People ask me why I choose to continue to believe in God despite all the problems that I face, despite all the dysfunction of my life, all the things that have hurt me. This right here, because this is Echo, the famous verse in Revelation 20. John writes, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, 'Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God.'" And here's the important part. "He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain. For the old order of things have passed away." He who was seated on the throne, Jesus, said, "I am making everything new." Then he said, "Write down these words, for they are trustworthy." That's the one thing God promises all of us. To fix the chaos, make everything new. Can you imagine a world where we didn't have to worry about crap that tries to attack us every day? We didn't have to worry about the dysfunction of those around us. We are our own dysfunctions as it's where we didn't have to worry about death or cancer, pain, whatever it is that's plaguing those that we love or even ourselves. Can you imagine a world like that? God promises that world is true, is coming. And the proof that he gives us to why that is going to happen is that peace, that calmness, that absolutely makes no sense for us to have the moments that we have. Paul writes in Philippians, "Be thankful for everything, be anxious for nothing, but through prayer and supplication, with your requests be made known to God. And the peace that surpasses all understanding will guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus." When the world starts crumbling around us, if we know that God is with us, we will have a peace that absolutely makes no sense for us to have. Think about that. As we enter into our second set of discussion questions up there on the screen, take about 10 minutes to go over those, and we'll come back together. All right, guys, let's come back together. Calmness in today's culture seems kind of far-fetched. It's either confusing to us because it is so anti-cultural to the American way of life. We don't focus on calmness. Like, we like the idea of it, but not in practice. And so when God comes in and says, "I can make your life calm," right? It's a foreign concept, one that we either are confused by or one we just cannot believe can actually be true. You know, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard sermons on peace or calmness, but then I hear in the practical side about what it quote unquote really means. You know, that yeah, you can be calm, but you still it's okay to be concerned. You know, or it's okay to experience stress. And I'm not saying that it's not, but we're talking about calmness. Calmness is actually something that can happen. Yeah, it's an ideal, but it is something that can happen. It's living life without any sort of pressure or stress or chaos. And while I do believe it is quote unquote achievable, it's really it's really hard to achieve. But this is where the psalmist comes in with how it's supposed to look. What is our response? Like, what can we do to be calm? Now, if I were to turn this into a 5-point, here's what you do kind of study, that would be stupid of me. Right? Because if all I can do is add a list to your life, that is not how we do it, right? So this is going to be dumb in the fact that, like, duh, Larry, but it's also going to be something that's going to be somewhat hard if you're not used to doing it. All right, so let's just talk about it. Here's what he writes. The psalmist writes the rest of the psalm, 10:11. God says, that's the he there, be still and know that I am God. This is the verse that this whole series was based off of. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Be still. The answer to how we become calm is by being still. Now, if you remember Brooke's sermon 2 weeks ago, being still is not getting to this quiet place and focusing on God for a day or an hour or 30 minutes even. It's a lifestyle that we live on. It's a lifestyle that admits what the psalmist is admitting here. Be still and know that I am God. And when you know God is God, you know that he is in charge. I will be exalted. I will win the day. The benefit of Christianity is that we know who wins in the end. Spoiler alert, we do. Jesus does. That's the benefit of Christianity. The benefit of Christianity is that despite the crap of this world, we know it gets better. And yeah, we might be impatient. Yes, we might want it now. Like, I don't know how many times I said, Jesus, just come now. Just end it. Come down and call us up to heaven and let us just enjoy you forever. I want that. Like, selfishly, I want that. Thank God I'm not God. If I were God, I would have ended it a long time ago. But God has He's in control. So no matter how bad our world gets, no matter how bad my world gets, no matter how bad my life gets or your life gets, God is in control. And that should give us a stillness, a calmness, a peace that makes absolutely no sense for us. No one can beat God. No president, no army, no country, no annoying person that gets under your skin, not even death itself can defeat God. If you're living in a world that is full of fires, garbage fires or not, doesn't matter. If you live in a world full of chaos and dysfunction, God exists in this world in such a way that he wants to put those fires out. Or at least help you deal with it. We have to be still and know that God is in control. We have to be still and know that God is more than just in control. He is there with us, fighting the fires, battling the fights, gaining control. He is there mourning with us, celebrating with us. He's excited when we are excited. He is sad when we are sad. He is happy when we are happy. God doesn't just want to fix it. He wants to live it. And that provides a calmness. I can't tell you how many times, well, I'll give you a more recent example. Over this last week, losing my mom, I've officiated every funeral of my family. We've had a lot of funerals in the last couple of years. And I've officiated every one of them, except for this one. I didn't officiate my mom's funeral. Because I just wanted to sit. I just wanted to sit next to my siblings and mourn. And while I get a lot out of preaching, like I think God teaches me as much as I teach. You know, as I'm teaching others, God is teaching me kind of a thing. I think I got more out of just sitting and mourning than I did out preaching and officiating. That's because I know that God's teaching. There's a lot of questions that come up with death. There's a lot of questions that come up with chaos. But God's got it. I don't have to. Shouldn't have to. Now, if you're sitting here and you're thinking that Christianity should be giving you all the answers, or that Christianity should be giving you a life full of happiness and joy and peace and just everything that you've ever wanted, that's not what Christianity is. Christianity gives us peace despite the crap. Christianity helps us to navigate through the dumpster fires. It doesn't take it away. He helps us deal with it. This is what the psalm is trying to say. If there's any kind of advice I can just give to you, if the one thing that I can leave us with today, it's just be still. Just be still. Let God control. Let God have control so you can just be calm. Allow yourself to feel whatever it is you need to feel. Let God take control. There's only 2 questions for this next section, so I want to spend just about 5 minutes in those. Take these last 5 minutes, answer either one or both of these questions, whatever it is that we want to discuss. Table leaders, please make sure everyone gets a chance to look at our response menu so that they know how to respond after our time together, and then we will wrap things up and call it an end in about 5-6 minutes. Right. One of the questions that usually comes with this idea of just being still with God is how do you know what to do? It's easy for me to tell you, be still, and not give you any advice on how to do that. And it's even hard to give advice because I think it's so personal and individualistic to the person who's looking for it. But I will say this. Look for the opportunities that God gives. I truly believe that God uses the circumstances of life to show us His presence and to show us His calmness. For instance, last month before Christmas, we wanted to have a Christmas party with a few friends of ours, and Ed and I were really excited and looking forward to this. And all of them were like, we are way too busy for December to even closely work. And so we scheduled it for this Friday. And this was scheduled over a month and a half ago. Let me tell you, this could not come at a better time. Over the last couple of weeks, with everything that's been happening over the last year, I am excited about spending time with some friends and playing games and being stupid for a few hours, right? There is joy in being stupid. And trust me, we will be stupid. That is calm. It's a break. Because I'm the type of person who needs people. Like, this is how I relax. I relax with a cup of coffee with friends, or games with friends, or sitting at a friend's house doing nothing, with friends. It'd be weird if I just sat at a friend's house and they weren't there, right? That's a whole other topic. But they do have to be home when these things occur. But I enjoy people. That's the thing that excites me the most about what God does in life, is that He brings you people that you know that He knows you need in that moment. And so whatever it is for you, if you're the exact opposite of me and you're an introvert, you're like, how can I as an introvert be still? God will give you moments of quietness. I believe that. I believe it. You may have to seek it. You may have to find time for it. But it's there. It's there. Maybe it's found in a car ride home. Maybe you drive an hour to work or a half hour to work. Turn off the radio, turn off everything, silence the phone, and just sit and be with God. Or if you're like me, find people who love Jesus and hang out with them. That's what I do. So with that said, we're going to enter into our time of response. And let me tell you, any response that you feel comfortable with is the right response. You know, we're not here to pressure. We're not here to make you choose something that is not something that you feel like God's asking you to do. So if you want to have community, if you want to, and we do this as a group, we don't do this as individuals, right? So if you want to have communion as we believe it was meant to be had, then that will be back here with our elder Dave. Yeah, he'll be leading our time of communion. Or maybe you need some prayer. You need someone to pray with you, or just to even jot down a prayer request that you pray later on. Vicky will be up in the back, and she will be happy to pray with you. Or if you're like me, you just want to talk some things out, you have some questions that you want answered, or maybe there's something that was said that you didn't understand, and you didn't even agree with. I will be out in the hallway to have those conversations. Or if you just want to go and say bye, and hopefully you come back next week, that's okay too. Whatever your decision is, we welcome it, we embrace it, and we are glad that you are able to make that with all the comfort and peace of Jesus Christ. Now, with that said, we are going to end our time together, and you can go to whatever area you decide you need to be at, and we will hopefully see you all next week, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a blessed week.